Hi, everybody. This time we are talking about religion. You will note that the format of this presentation is a little bit different. That's only because I've been giving this lecture for some time and it's from a previous version of the textbook. You will also note that there is only one video lecture for this week. Other than that, everything's more or less the same. So today we'll be talking about what it means to study religion as a sociologist, and we will also be talking about just a couple world religions that in your life you are likely to encounter. So, oh, sorry about that. What is religion? Well, religion we define as a unique content or substance relating to the sacred that separates it from other forms of knowledge and belief. And that is a really vague definition. And that's because there is so much variety in world religions that it is incredibly tough to define. Many religions come very close to being described as philosophy. Many religions are on the other end of that. And that'll make a little bit more sense once we talk about some of the differences between world religions. It's easier to study religious belief. A religious belief is a statement to which members of a particular religion adhere. So we can ask you what you believe, what you don't believe, and from there we can compare those beliefs to other people. And that's what we as sociologists are interested in. We are not interested in what is or is not ultimate reality. We're not interested if there's a God, if there's a heaven, if there's a hell, if there's reincarnation. Individual sociologists may be interested in these things personally on a religious level, but as a discipline, we are not interested in those things. We want to know what people believe. Regarding religious belief, we also often study fundamentalism. I have done projects in the past on fundamentalism, which is a rigid adherence to core religious doctrines. So, and most world religions have this. They have sects or divisions within those religions that take their religious doctrines as being absolute truth, and they have very little tolerance or use for anything outside of those core religious doctrines. We see those in Christianity, we see those in Islam, we see those in Hinduism, we see those in almost every world religion. Religious rituals are another thing we're interested in studying as sociologists. Rituals are practices required or expected of members of a given faith. Examples of religious rituals include the communion ritual within Christianity, the bar or bat mitzvah in Judaism, or the Hajj in Islam. The Hajj is actually a series of religious rituals that take place over the course of a pilgrimage. And then those religious rituals often evoke religious experience, which are feelings or perceptions of being in direct contact with ultimate reality or of being overcome with religious emotion. This is an area where we ask people, what are you feeling in this moment, right? And uh, there are elements that may or may not be the feeling of, spiritual energies, but there certainly are also elements of religious experience that are evoked purely by the social setting. Cults are something else that are interesting to sociologists. Um, the term cult is problematic because every religion in history started from somewhere. So Christianity started as a subdivision of Judaism in what is now the Middle East and was once, 13 guys out in the desert. When religions are new, they're often called cults, but we often use that term cult in a derogatory kind of way to meet a bunch of crazy people. Um, but most new religions are not dangerous. Their adherents may believe new or different things, but that does not make them inherently dangerous. But with that said, there are some cults that are dangerous. Some new religions are dangerous. Uh, so if you are ever find yourself in a situation with a um, a new religion or what could be called a cult, it is important to know the warning signs. And this includes any new group you come a part of. There are political organizations that do these types of things as well. ISIS is actually very similar to this type of behavior in many ways, even though ISIS is both religious and political. So, there are more warning signs, but here are 5 good ones. You are forced to cut your friends or family out of your life. If the religion is telling you to cut ties with your friends and loved ones, that is a big warning sign. If you have to pay for spirituality, that is a big warning sign. It is very common for religions to take um, donations or expect donations of its members. That's within Christianity called offering. But to pay in order, especially to go to the next level of the religion, that is suspicious. uh, your sexuality is specifically regulated. Certain cults, not all cults, but certain cults have been known to attempt to brainwash their members into saying, okay, Bill, you now have sex with Jenny, like while we stand here and watch, like that kind of very intense, creepy stuff. Um, that if you're in a religious organization that starts doing that stuff, I'd get out. Another big indicator is the leader or the group is always right. It is normal within any organization, even a religious organization, to be able to discuss things and to just be able to discuss issues, even within fundamentalist religions. But if you are in a situation where you cannot argue or can't even question the authority figure, that might be dangerous. And another, you are not allowed to leave. If you are physically being told you can't go between here and here, uh, it's probably a cult. A really great book. I would assign it, except the class isn't long enough, and we're not specifically a class about religion. It's called Love, Sex, Fear, Death: The Untold Story of the Process Church of the Final Judgment. Really, really great book. Interviews members of what was called the Process Church. The Process Church is actually a cult that started blending Christianity with some of the psychology movements and self-help movements in the mid 1900s, and then putting their own strange spins on things. The Process Church is a very interesting organization. Now let's talk about religion from the three core sociological perspectives. Functionalism. Functionalism states that religion serves to strengthen community solidarity and to give answers to difficult questions in life. So, what purpose does religion serve? It serves to make community and build community. Within functionalism, there are two very important ideas: that of the sacred and that of the profane. The sacred stuff within religion is that special stuff, that not ordinary stuff. Maybe that stuff tied in with religious ritual or religious practice. The profane things are not necessarily bad. They're not bad. They're normal, everyday stuff. So, for example, as a rather detailed example, within Christianity. within most Protestant churches anyway, um, the bread and the wine, or the bread and the grape juice for the communion ritual, are not usually made on site for the church. Many times, the either the clergy or staff of the church will go somewhere else to get the bread for the communion ritual. So, in that moment, uh, Saturday comes, communion's going to be on Sunday. Someone has to go get the bread. Secretary may go and get the bread at Panera, for example. So we could see 7 loaves of bread sitting on the shelf at Panera before the secretary buys that bread. And in that moment, those pieces of bread are all identical. They're all the same. But through the process of the secretary buying the bread, taking it back to the church, giving it to the clergy, performs various acts over the bread, takes it into the space that communion will take place. It socially becomes sacred. The material of the bread has not changed. The bread has taken an increased symbolic meaning. Now, other elements, metaphysical elements, religious elements, are talked about in the communion ritual. We're not interested in that as sociologists. We are interested in how a loaf of bread goes from Panera, gets into the church, and is eaten by people, and what it means to people. And that's powerful. That's powerful, and it's incredibly interesting. Conflict theory. Conflict theory contends that religion is a tool of the ruling elite to oppress the masses. Traditionally, conflict theorists have not been friendly to religion. The traditional classic Marxist interpretation of religion has been that if people are willing to suffer in this life in exchange for non-tangible rewards, they are easier to exploit. So the rich take advantage of the poor by using religion. That's the classical Marxist ideology, and that was really a common strain of thought among academics in the late 1800s into a lot of the 1900s. Uh, and that's an unfortunate stance, because a lot can be said by being able to study religion. And in after the 1960s, after the 1970s, sociologists began to recognize that religion has been used to overthrow uh, oppressors, and been used by oppressed to, create new things. We call this liberation theology. If you see capital L, capital T liberation theology, that's talking about a specific type of Catholicism, particularly that practiced by the Jesuits in Latin America. And that liberation theology was used by clergy to help peasants rise up and overthrow some pretty nasty dictators. If you see lowercase l, lowercase t liberation theology, that's a more generic term for the use of religion in general to help question authority, overthrow oppressors. For example, you can use the term liberation theology to explain what Martin Luther King did as a pastor to try to overthrow segregation in the American Southeast. You could use liberation theology to explain what Mahatma Gandhi did during the Indian Revolution. Yeah, really, again, amazingly interesting stuff. And if conflict theorists hadn't opened up a little bit to studying religion in a less anti-aggressive, anti-religious way, they wouldn't have been able to recognize that. Symbolic interactionism states that religion is full of rich symbols that help people interact with each other and communicate complex ideas. Uh, Here you see 2 slides from what are called the Chick tracts. Chick tracts are a fundamentalist, extremist series of Christian cartoon series. You see a series of symbols here. You see on your left the image of a crucified individual, presumably that's depicting Jesus. On your right, you see the devil. You see the word eternity highlighted. You see flames. You see a phrase, because you died for your sins. All of these are specific symbols and rich symbols, meaning they mean a lot of things. There's a more to because you died for your sins than just saying those words. What the hell? Huh, right? What the hell does that mean to someone out of the context of the religion? It doesn't mean anything. But to someone that understands the symbols of Christianity, particularly extremist fundamentalist Christianity, these are incredibly powerful symbols. Now let's look at a few religions specifically. Here are our major world religions as determined by number of adherents. Christianity has the largest number of adherents worldwide with 2 billion followers. Islam has 1.5 billion followers. Christianity is not growing as fast as Islam is, but Islam still has quite some way to go before it becomes the largest world religion. The reason why Islam is growing faster is largely because it exists in places without as much access to birth control. So the population of much of the Middle East and Africa, it's not that people don't want to use birth control, they simply don't have physical access to it. So that has the counter effect of making it look like Islam's growing a lot faster. In all likelihood, I would not be, again, if I make it that long, right? In the next century, I would expect that to start slowing down, largely because medical advances, largely. Anyway, Hinduism, 828 million followers of Hinduism. So, in all likelihood, if you live in a semi-urban area, I know a lot of you live in rural areas, but in most American urban areas, you see a fair number of Christians, and there are some Muslims. In actually Columbus itself, where I live, there is a rather substantial Muslim community. So maybe my perspective's a little out of whack of that. But you probably have encountered Muslims. You, in all likelihood, have not encountered that many Hindus in your life, though. And even though it's the third largest world religion, there are not that many Hindus in the United States. And that is because the vast majority of Hindus are in India, which is an incredibly densely populated country. Buddhism has 400 million followers. And then the next on the list is Judaism, that has 14 million followers. Now, you should note that the double stars beside Judaism, it says by influence, not by size. Judaism is not the fifth largest world religion. I do not recall off the top of my head what the fifth largest is by number, but Judaism is on this list of 5 because Judaism is incredibly influential to both Christianity and Islam and much of the rest of the Western world. So we do include Judaism on this list. And culturally, Judaism is very significant to the United States as well. Let's talk about Christianity first. These are going in order of size. Christianity has 2 billion followers, its major leader being Jesus of Nazareth. The central tenets of Christianity are forgiveness of sins via salvation, and different churches have different definitions of what they mean by that. You might not know about Christianity. Not all Christians reject science. Many Christians see the bulk of the Bible as being metaphorical and not literal truth. Many Christians believe that. Not all churches oppose same-sex marriage. Most churches have divisions within the church, some divisions saying, yes, we do oppose same-sex marriage, other divisions saying we are all in favor of same-sex marriage. That image of the Reconciling Ministries network in the upper right-hand corner, that is a group within the United Methodist Church, a mainline Christian denomination that actually encourages the full inclusion of all Methodists, regardless of their sexual orientation or sexual or gender identity. You will see in your upper left-hand corner, those are Christians from the Middle East. You will see that image under the Reconciling Ministries image. Those are Greek Orthodox Christians. So Christians are more than just white people from the United States. There is a very wide scope of Christianity. Islam. Islam has 1.5 billion followers. Followers of Islam are called Muslims, which means those who submit to Islam. Major teacher of Islam, the Prophet Muhammad. Again, just like Christianity, there are other teachers within Christianity. Similarly, in Islam, there are at least what most Muslims would consider like 3 other major teachers. Central tenets of Islam are belief in Allah. Allah in Arabic simply means the God. It's much like calling within Judaism or Christianity, calling God, God, right? Worship of Allah is another tenet of Islam. Charitable giving. So similar to how many other churches ask their church to make regular donations. That's what they mean with charitable giving. Fasting during the holy month of Ramadan. That is another tenet of Islam. Ramadan, healthy people, people that are fully, sound in their body are expected to fast. With that said, women who are pregnant are not expected to fast, and those who are physically ill are not expected to fast during Ramadan. And a pilgrimage to Mecca, at least once in your life, if you can possibly make that happen. So for Muslims in the United States, it would probably be more like once per lifetime. If you lived in Jerusalem, or if you lived in Dubai or somewhere a lot closer to Mecca in Saudi Arabia, you would be expected to do that more because, it's right over there. You might not know about Islam that non-Orthodox Muslim women are not required to wear hijab. It is seen as a choice. Now, what is social conformism? What is what your mother tells you to do? Is that a choice? Is that not a choice? That's an interesting question. But Muslim women, especially Muslim women in the United States, are seen as being fully capable of making their own choice in this regard. There are many different types of headgear for Muslim women. The most common you see in the United States is the hijab. The hijab is a headscarf, does not include the veil, and only the oval shape of the face is visible, typically with a hijab. There are different cultural definitions with typical American-style hijab, how much of the arm or leg is visible. The burqa is the generally expected to be the most extreme version of the hijab of Muslim headgear. I believe, if I remember correctly, burqa still classifies as a type of hijab. I could be incorrect with that. But burqa is a full veil, typically worn by Pashtuns in Afghanistan. It covers the entire body, and it is enforced by the Taliban. Taliban doesn't really exist so much in Afghanistan anymore. There's still pockets. But there is a range of Muslim attire for women. And also, Orthodox Muslim men also have given expectations. And there, yeah, are there issues with patriarchy here? Absolutely, there are. Are there different standards of strictness for men as there are for women in certain places? Of course, there are. But if you talk to a modern American Muslim woman, she would tell you she does not feel oppressed in all likelihood. You might not know that the vast majority of Muslims reject violence. This term jihad does not mean holy war. It means holy struggle. It means religious struggle. And that term jihad is often misused by extremists, not only in the United States, people who oppose Islam, but also Islamic extremists. So yes, when ISIS talks about jihad, they are talking about holy war. But when a mainline uh, American Muslim talks about jihad, they're talking about a religious struggle. So, for example, a friend of mine who was trying to explain this to me when I was younger explained it this way. You can have a personal jihad to stop smoking. It's a personal struggle, and you are calling on God to help you with that struggle. I really like this hashtag campaign that was going on. I started using this about a year ago. I hope it's still happening. I haven't checked recently. Um, so you would hashtag, if you want to look it up, would be hashtag my jihad, is to build bridges through friendship, right? That can be something that a Muslim build relationships and communities through friendship and calling upon God to help you with that. That would be a use of jihad in the proper Muslim sense. And that, taking that into consideration really can change a lot of the ways that people view Muslims if we were able to properly explain that to a lot of people. Sorry, I just took a drink of coffee there. Um, there are 828 million followers of Hinduism in the world. Hinduism is an incredibly diverse religion, possibly the most diverse world religion. There is no central leader or hierarchy within Hinduism. Uh, Instead, there are many, 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 many subdivisions within Hinduism. Those subdivisions may have their own hierarchy, but there is no, for lack of a better word, Jesus or Muhammad within Hinduism. There's no central hierarchy. There's no central Bible, if it were, within Hinduism. There are holy books, but there are a whole lot of them. The central tenets of Hinduism, there are central tenets, even though it is incredibly diverse. All Hindus dedicate themselves to a god or a series of gods. Those are called devas. The deva uh, are pretty similar to what we would call a god, even though they're a little bit different. I'll get into that in a second. Hindus believe in reincarnation. So they believe after they die, they are going to be reincarnated into another body, probably another human, but they could be reincarnated into an animal or something like that. Reincarnation occurs via karma and dharma. So dharma is behavior that affects karma. So dharmic acts are either positive or negative. A positive dharmic act would be to save somebody's life. A negative dharmic act would be to kill somebody. And then that positive karma or that positive dharma or negative dharma builds up energy. So your negative dharma builds up on your soul as negative karma, mixes in with that positive karma, and then the combined energy on your soul when you die determines your reincarnation. Do you get a better life in the next life? Do you get a worse life in the next life? And that's that whole, again, they're really interconnected concepts there. Feel free to re-listen to that a couple times if you need it to sink in. Then moksha then is the pursuit of liberation from reincarnation. Reincarnation is not seen as being an inherently good thing within Hinduism. The spiritual pursuit within Hinduism is to not be reincarnated anymore, to to stop the cycle of reincarnation and to re-enter oneness with the divine, which is what is thought happens once you stop being reincarnated. Big ideas. You might not know that Hindu devas, what we call the gods, are seen as representation of the same aspect of the same supreme being. So, Vishnu, Ganesh, Kali, all of the hundreds of Hindu gods, hundreds of thousands of Hindu gods, are seen as being representations or pieces of one God. And similarly, we are all representations of one God, and once we stop that moksha, once we stop that reincarnation, we become of that part of that one God again. So in that way, Hinduism is often mistaken as being polytheistic. It actually is pretty darn monotheistic, which is a common misconception of Hinduism. Buddhism. 400 million followers of Buddhism called Buddhists. Major teachers of Buddhism include the guy we call the Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama. Probably mispronouncing that. I do it every time. And that was the first Buddha. There are many Buddhas. The Dalai Lama is also another major teacher within Buddhism. The current Dalai Lama is said to be the 14th reincarnation of a Buddhist saint called Gendun Drup. He lived, I believe, if I remember correctly, in the 600s. But they believe that this man, the Dalai Lama pictured here, his spirit has lived 14 times since he was Gendun Drup, and he probably lived hundreds of times before then. And the next Dalai Lama will be the same reincarnation of that guy. After he dies, they have to go find him. They have to go find the child that he is inhabiting, and so on forever. Central tenets of Buddhism are the three jewels. All Buddhists are generally believe in these three things. They believe in the following of the teachings of the Buddha. They believe in Dharma in a similar way that Hindus believe in Dharma, so spiritual cause and effect. You do bad things, you get bad karmic energy on you. That will impact how you're reincarnated. And Buddhists also believe in community with other Buddhists. So much like Christians or Jews or Muslims talk about fellowship with each other, same thing in Buddhism. You might not know that the Buddha is not seen as a god, but as a teacher. You might not also know that some Buddhists can be atheists. You could be a completely orthodox Buddhist and not believe in higher gods or a higher god. Now that varies based on sect to sect. It's my understanding that Tibetan Buddhists, such as the Dalai Lama, do believe in greater spiritual beings. But, for example, Zen Buddhists, it is not uncommon for Zen Buddhists to be atheists, or in other words, to not believe in gods. There are 14 million Jews in the world. Most of those Jews are in either Israel or the United States, actually. Obviously, for historic reasons, many of the Jews left or were killed in Europe during World War II. Major teachers include Moses and Abraham. Within Judaism, Judaism is less leader-oriented than Christianity tends to be. Central tenets of Buddhism include the worship and reverence of God, and also community is seen as being community, shared ethnicity, shared history is seen as being very important to Jews. The bar or bat mitzvah are seen as being very important within Judaism. And you might not know that belief in an afterlife is not central to Judaism. Um, I would probably venture to say most Jews believe in an afterlife of one kind or another. But again, just like it's possible for a completely Orthodox Buddhist to not believe in God, it is entirely possible for a completely Orthodox Jew to not believe in an afterlife. Other world religions include indigenous animism, Baha'i, atheism, by some definitions, is included as a religion, Sikhism, Taoism, also known as Confucianism, Jainism, spiritualism, which is actually its own thing with a capital S, neo-paganism, Rastafari, Shinto, Unitarianism, Zoroastrianism, Scientology is often included on lists of world religions, and smaller sects and cults. So this week, I have provided you a clip of a Hindu sect known as the Agoris. The Agoris are a group of Hindus, and they are on an extreme side. Most Hindus do not, um, probably safe to say, don't like what the Agoris do, but they are respected by others. Is there anything about this group that makes it hard for you to avoid being ethnocentric? I want you to reflect on that when watching this video. I think, if I remember correctly, it's only about 20 minutes long. Why? What makes it tough for you to look at this group and identify what they are doing as religion the same way as what maybe the church down the street from you is doing? Because they're both doing religion, but um, yeah, it's a little different with the Agoris. You'll see that almost immediately. So I want that to be your discussion for the week. Talk about that. Your quiz is due by Sunday. If I remember correctly, you also have a vocabulary review sheet due this week because our test is coming up next week. So that is it for um, this lecture. I know it was a little longer than many, but I hope you learned.